Welcome into the 615 Sessions podcast on this Thursday afternoon, but it's not really a 615 Sessions podcast. This feed was invaded by a couple of intruders many years ago. I outlasted them. I may have lost some battles, but I won the goddamn war. The Tighten Up podcast is back and better than ever, and I feel like in these trying times, the best thing that we could possibly do is to spend a little time with Austin Huff and Jack Gentry, formerly of A to Z Sports. Hello, gentlemen.
Are we to blame? Are we to blame for 3-14? Because I can only imagine that's the case, right?
Understand that your sad reaction videos are 100% to blame for your sad boy football team.
I haven't. Since I started. You know when I started doing those? I started doing those in the middle of the 7-game losing streak at the end of the 2021 season. 2022 season. That is when I started doing them. So I haven't been happy since I started doing these reaction videos.
Yeah, that sounds about right. How are you?
Did you just ask me a question? Sorry, you're the connection's not totally great. But yeah, I'm not doing well, Buck. Let's be honest. All right.
Is the router plugged into your cigarette lighter?
It may just be. Is it that bad? Do we need to rectify the situation?
It's choppy at best.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, like, outside of like Lincoln getting shot in the head, the play was pretty good, right?
I can't wait for me to laugh at these jokes on a delay. That's going to really. So, boys, 3-14. You got the number one overall. What's been going through your head this football season?
Oh God.
Mine was, how bad does playing hide and seek on 440 really sound? That was going through my head for most of the football season. But I was just looking for little signs. When you have a season like this, you're just looking for little signs of hope. I mean, whether that's whether that's a player, maybe a strategy, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a scheme. You're looking for something to develop along the way. We knew pretty early this season was going nowhere, right? 0-5 start. I was in Chicago for week 1 with Austin, and that second half was a microcosm of what ended up being one of the least entertaining seasons. I mean, I'm as big of a Titans fan as there is out there, Buck, and I still went to a few home games, but I've never been as apathetic as I was this season. Like I just, there wasn't a player to attach hope onto. Like Nick Westbrook-Akine is Austin and I's, he's our spirit animal.
Yeah,
even 9 touchdowns, even 9 touchdowns out of NWI wasn't enough for me to get up, get excited, turn the Titans TV on, and just endure 3 hours of hell. There was nothing to look forward to, and this season it was as apathetic as I've been.
I was so glad that the podcast ended in August. Like, I was so glad to not have to, and God love you, Buck, doing the Lord's work, because not only having to talk about it for 3 hours on the radio every single day, but then also having to do like the pre and post game shows that you do, and then the A to Z sports content that you do. Like, I was just so grateful that I did not have to talk about this team. As Jack said, we were in Chicago. The happiest moment of the season was at halftime of week 1, and it wasn't happy the rest of the way. And it was absolutely brutal. And then, like, forget this season. 3-14 was bad. The last 8 days after the season might have been even worse. Every single day you were just smacked in the face with a cinder block of terrible news. And it's like, and Jack and I used to be the biggest Amy Adams drunk defenders on planet Earth. Like, we would go to bat for her hard because we liked the fact that she did not put up with mediocrity, and that, even if when things started to turn bad, she was like, no, we're not going to allow that here. We want excellence. And she just got a little too trigger happy. And here we are, 3-14 with honestly no hope. I've gone through, you know how in Infinity War, Jarvis goes through every scenario in his head, or no, was it Doctor Strange goes through every scenario in his head, and he goes, there's only 3 outcomes that that end up good for us. I've gone through every scenario in my head this offseason with the Tennessee Titans, and there isn't a single one that will give me hope for 2025. Like, I'm not looking forward to September, and that's 9 months away. So where's my head at? It's deeper down into the clogged toilet that is St. Thomas Sports Park.
Let me first start by making it about me and say that none of you deserve me for the amount of content that I have been producing.
Oh, come on, get out of here. In a year that Indiana football makes the playoff.
Not a single one of you deserves me this season. I swear to God, your football team boys, they have aged me 10 years, and that's with the Bulldogs. I don't know if I have ever been a part of a more miserable calendar year of professional football in my life. And I know that the Tennessee Titans have been worse in their history. I know what 2014 was right before I got here and saw everything that it took to get this thing off the mat first time. But they had...
It's that router. It's that Are you calling from are you
it went down.
Are you doing this podcast from a Tesla Cybertruck?
Why is it exploding?
No, it's just, I mean, like, you sound like you sound like one of like the beat up robots in iRobot. Like Will Smith just went to town on you.
I just don't even know how to respond because I'm just going to sound like a bigger robot. I think that there was a good idea behind this podcast. I think I summarily screwed it up.
Well, I'll say this, Jack. Did you notice a shift in Buck's tone this season? Because I consumed a lot of Buck content this year, and I did notice that in a year such as this, where the Titans win 3 whole football games, Buck just shifted the how he discussed the team about it was a lot more your team. It was a lot more, like, this is what you guys have to deal with. This is, and he's like almost like kind of shifting on what the Titans are as to, he's like, look, I want no part of this. I am disowning this franchise in any way possible. And even the post game little wrap up videos that he does from the stadium got just a little more like it went through like various stages to like depressed, around like week 6 to 10, and then to just angry that he had to be there every Sunday, to then at the end, like the last like few weeks was just like, you know what? I don't even care. It was senior slide mode. The way you feel when you get back from spring break your senior year, right before summer, you're like, what are these teachers going to do? Like I'm going to college next year. Like, who gives a shit? I don't even know if I'm allowed to cuss on this.
But if you noticed, Austin, the real pessimism started to set in. It started to feel like he was blaming us. Right. We were just born in the wrong city, man. That's all we did. But yeah, it did kind of coincide with the Colts slide a little bit. I'm wondering if those two things had something to do with each other. What do you think, Buck?
The Colts slide.
Good point, Jack. Good point, Jack. Not enough people are talking about it. Once the Colts lost that game to the New York Giants, that you did really start to see a shift, and like Buck was like really irate, and I think the realization really set in when he was going in on the article about about Rand Carthon, the hit job, basically the smear campaign, if you will. I think that was the realization of like, damn, I have to watch the playoffs this week without the Colts in them. And I think that was where the true anger stemmed from, not the smear campaign itself, or, the salacious job of trying to cover the tracks, and the very poor PR job, I might say, by the Tennessee Titans to say, this is why we fired Rand Carthon. It was Buck being like, freaking Colts, man, I got to go another year. Since 2014, since the Colts have won this division, and ever since I started working in Nashville, the Colts have done nothing, and I have to live with it.
It was the straw that broke Anthony Richardson's shoulder. I think that's what it was.
It's the perfect time to pile on because I'm on Terry McCormick's Zoom connection and I can't defend myself without It's the perfect time.
Yeah.
Boys, I appreciate that you've had good humor about it the whole way through. What now, though? Because, Austin, you can't have already given up hope. You have the number 1 overall pick. I've never met a more miserable fan base with the number 1 overall pick.
No, because I've always felt this way. I'm not an NFL draft guy, and I don't know why anyone is, honestly. Like people think that being number 1 or being higher up in the draft order, like if you're not going to win the Super Bowl, people are like, well, we want a higher draft pick, as if that's some sort of consolation prize. Every single draft pick is a coin flip at best, and I just don't I don't see what the lore is in bringing in a college kid, a kid in his early 20s, thinking that they're going to be the savior of a franchise. And because very rarely is it the case. You could count on one hand the number of rookie quarterbacks that have had instant success. Even Peyton Manning sucked his first year. Now, granted, he ended up becoming a pro, but that was because it was a guy who won in college. It was they're not even a dime a dozen. They're so rare. The Andrew Lucks, the Patrick Mahomes, but even he, like, you had to wait for him. I don't love the fact of like, oh, we're going to draft someone in April and they're going to immediately change this franchise. They're not. That's the reality of the case. And the fact that people think that having the number 1 pick is a good thing, it's not. Teams with number 1 picks are like, it's very rarely do they rebound and are not picking in the top 10 the very next year. So I'm just like, I'm very just tired. I'm exhausted. I'm not happy about April. I started making a campaign for a kid that I found on Instagram, like some sort of Abercrombie model that I found on Instagram to be the Titans' next quarterback, because it's the only thing that will get me by, that will entertain me right now. So that's where I'm at with my fandom.
See, I look at it a little bit differently, because it does feel like the Titans have the number 1 pick, like the Atlanta Hawks did, right? You're picking first after Wembanyama, the year after Wembanyama gets drafted. Like there isn't a Wemby in this draft. There isn't a Jaden Daniels in this draft, which is the most frustrating part about the timing of picking number 1. Now, the good thing is, which is it does get me a little excited, is because there are a lot of dumb franchises that are picking in the top 10 that need a quarterback and might be willing to give up an extreme haul to move up to number 1 if the Titans don't see Cam Ward as a number 1 overall pick, or Shedeur Sanders for that matter, or Abdul Carter. So that's what I have to look forward to. Like even the Bears, like, you don't have to be a franchise that runs well in order to capitalize at the draft. Like, the Bears are about as poorly run as it gets, but all it takes is one franchise that's a little bit dumber than you are to change the whole course of your future. And that's what they found, picking off the carcass of the Carolina Panthers. Why can't the Raiders be that for the Titans? Why can't the Giants be that for the Titans? There are teams in the top 10 that make sense as ideal trade partners to kind of help this thing get off the ground, because it really is a multi-year rebuild. It felt like last year the Titans wanted to copy the Preds model of a competitive rebuild, where they kind of straddled the line of, okay, are we going to rebuild or are we going to compete? We all know that they weren't in position to compete at this point. We know that they're not going to be in position to compete next year. So at least you can kind of formulate a plan around having the number 1 pick. There's a sense of direction. Now, I don't know which direction it's going to go in, because ownership It feels a little scatterbrained at the moment with some of these decisions, but I think that if you do this right, there is a way out of it. It's just not going to be next season.
So we're not in on Shedeur.
No, the dude couldn't even win in the Pac-12 or the Big 12, and we think he's going to win when the talent is higher. What do you mean win? He didn't win the Alamo Bowl, dude. Like the dude is like, I just don't understand the allure around Shedeur. And like, if you were annoyed with Ryan Tannehill, the most literally level-headed quarterback on planet Earth, you want to bring in Deion Sanders' son? You don't think that's going to like if the first 4-game losing streak that the Titans have under Shedeur Sanders with Deion Sanders as dad, like Deion Sanders is the ultimate AAU coach dad. You know, it's like, hey, that my son's playing. My son's playing right now, and if he's not playing, then we're taking our things and we're going home to another AAU team down, you know, in the next county over. Like that is Deion Sanders at the professional level, and I want no part of that. I want the Dallas Cowboys to hire Deion Sanders just so I can laugh at that clown show. I don't want it. I don't want it in Nashville. I don't think that Shedeur Sanders, is he talented? Sure, he's good, but do I think he's going to be the savior of the Titans franchise? I don't want to do this thing that the Chicago Bears do every single year, where you get Justin Fields and you think he's the savior for 2 seasons, and then you're right back drafting number 1 again, taking Caleb Williams, thinking he's the savior, and then 2 years from now, you know what the Chicago Bears will probably be picking? Number 1 again, and trying picking their next savior for quarterback. I don't want to do that. I don't think that he is not, as Jack said, there is no Wemby in this draft. So why try and make someone who's not Wemby a Wemby?
And that's the thing. That's why I don't necessarily agree with the structure right now. It's because you've got a guy in Brinker whose seat is definitely a little warm. I don't know, what he has on Amy to have survived this past cycle of firing.
Yeah,
if Brinker's seat is warm, then Callahan's seat is on fire right now.
Chad Brinker pulled the buck and was like, "Hey, this 3-14, that's your team. That's your team, Rand. I had nothing to do with it." It's like I was in the building, but I had nothing to do with 3-14. I was awake on the airplanes.
But the problem is with having people who are whose jobs are kind of on the line in this season, like there probably isn't a quarterback worthy of going number 1 overall, but with the pressure that's on Callahan and Brinker to turn this thing around and immediately find like a savior of this franchise, someone to pull them out of the dumpster, like I don't trust them to evaluate this draft class properly because of the pressure that's on them. They need to win, and that offense has to produce in order for Callahan's job to be saved. And this doesn't feel like a draft where a quarterback at number 1 is the right way to go. It feels like you can go non-QB and maybe go best available. But with what the Titans need and how much pressure these guys are under that are making the decisions, I don't trust them to judge this class objectively. I think that they're going to make a rash decision and go quarterback when this might not be the draft for it.
And that's what made the Rand firing so frustrating, because it's like, okay, even if he was GM or like if I don't know if he was calling the shots or what, given the structure over there, which is another thing that is very frustrating about this team is nobody knows who answers to who or what. No one's willing to accept blame when things go turn to 3-14. So but then you take a step back and you look at the draft class and you look at the guys taken in last year's draft and you're like, oh, wow. Every single one of those guys had an impact at some point in this season, which tells me, okay, if they're making impacts as rookies, they're only going to get better. Like they're going to get stronger. And this is a very good draft class. And then next thing you know, only Rand was the one who paid for the 3-14 season, was the only single person to be put on the chopping block. And meanwhile, you've got Amy, who sits in her ivory throne, who answers to literally nobody except for Mike Keith, who isn't even in the building anymore. And so we don't know what her vision is, what her plan. There's no clarity there. And then you got the next person down is what? Chad Brinker? Nobody knows what he does. We need to get the 2 Bobs from Office Space in there to ask him, what is it exactly that you do here? Because if you're going to put Rand Carthon on the chopping block, aren't you Rand's boss? Aren't you the guy who should be waking him up if he's falling asleep on the plane and you wanting him to watch film? Like, why are you absolved from 3-14, but everyone else is to blame? And then Brian Callahan, on the base level. If you're going to let Rand go, how are you not going to let the coach go as well? And I never will call for anyone's job, but it doesn't make sense when you let one guy go and not the head coach. Let the head coach go, and like you could let the head coach go and not the GM, or you could let the GM and the head coach go, but you can't just let the GM go. Buck, you screamed it from the high heavens all off season and literally at the end of the season. It's the one thing that would prove incompetence. And guess what? It proved incompetence. And now the one like bit of hope that we had, oh, cool, number 1 seed, at least now everyone's going to be calling us for that number 1 pick. The only thing people are calling the Titans are stupid. Literally the laughing stock of the NFL. And it all stems from the top down. Every bad team in the NFL stems from ownership. And Miss Amy, unwilling to show her face unless it's at the tailgate when her team is in the AFC Championship. Any other time, she will not show her face, and she just stays quiet. Mum is the word. And while chaos is breaking out in the streets below her, I'm just sorry. I'm just so freaking fed up, and I haven't had a podcast to vent about it every Tuesday for the last season plus. So I've had this pent up frustration. And now Buck's on mute. And now Buck's on mute. Are you hearing Buck, Jack?
I'm not hearing Buck. I'm not hearing Buck.
Buck, you're on mute. You're on mute. This podcast is literally the Titan season in digital form.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's still not coming through. But
he's not coming through.
I'll hop in here for Buck,
which is honestly the best Buck has ever sounded, to be honest with you.
Okay, so if you're looking forward, though, you're looking forward to the future. You want to get competitive by the time this new stadium's built, which, by the way, they're making significant.
It's not. Yeah, time is ticking. Oh my gosh.
But I don't. It's kind of frustrating. It feels like the Titans are close to losing their base. And when you jack up season ticket prices for PSL holders of 20+ years, you lose them in a down era. Like you're starting to lose a little bit of your identity as a franchise, and you're forgetting about the people who helped you get here in the first place. And pricing loyal fans out like that is not good for business. And it's just kind of like eating in a restaurant, man. Like I go to a restaurant. When I eat out, I expect the food to be good, right? Yeah. And just because John Taffer comes in and rescues your bar and fixes the upholstery and paints the walls and hangs lights and all this to make it look better, which is what the Titans are essentially doing by building this new, new stadium. I'm not going to go there if the food tastes bad. So until the product is changed, with this roster, with the coaching staff, with whoever makes the decisions in the front office. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a tough place for me to go watch football games because I know that I can't trust the food that's coming out of the kitchen.
Yeah. This restaurant's so bad. Even Vince Young wouldn't spend $10,000 here.
but he would get in a fight in the back.
Yeah. He would. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Buck is now officially out. Is this our podcast now? Did the Tighten Up podcast just pirate the 615 podcast? Is this ours now? I think it's ours.
We engulfed him like triplets in a womb. There's only 2 that make it out. He was bragging about surviving the war too with us. I think that was a freezing cold take.
Full disclosure, and I don't know if Buck is going to appreciate me saying this. He was coming to us from the parking lot of that gas station right out in front of Nissan Stadium.
Tiger Mom.
So you got to think that the Wi-Fi anywhere associated to anything Tennessee Titans is going to be shite at best. It is. The Wi-Fi at Nissan Coliseum is as bad as the football. Here he is. I think we got him back.
I'm doing my best, okay?
There he is. Fresh from his Rolls Royce.
Damn you and your Tiger Mart. I'm doing the best job that I can, okay? I'm trying to figure out how to host a podcast from a godforsaken parking lot because I've been covering shitty 3-14 football for 6 damn months. I've had enough.
Hey, Buck, what's worse at Nissan Coliseum, the football or the Wi-Fi?
All of it. All of it's shit. All of it's shit.
It's like that South Park episode where Stan
It's
finally
unbelievable.
turns a certain age and the music starts it all sounds like shit.
Yeah.
That's what part of South Park we're in right now, being Titans fans and Buck being in his car at the Tiger Mart.
And in
I don't think
every
there's a better way
season,
for me
the
to end this
Titans are
podcast
Kenny.
other than just letting the two of you talk. Like, I should have just done this from the start and then gotten out of the way. So we should probably
Well,
get out of here before I ruin any more of this podcast.
When you bounced out, Jack and I were like, "Oh shit, man! This is our podcast now. This is the Tighten Up podcast is reincarnated as the 615 podcast."
Yeah, and Buck, before we
It's-
do end
it's-
this, I have a question for you. I kind of want to turn the tables here.
Ooh, yeah, it's our podcast now, dude.
Let's go.
You've been listening to any J. Cole lately?
You are such a piece of shit.
Come on, man. 2014 Forest Hills Drive.
Of the 615 Sessions podcast, it couldn't have gone worse, which means it went really, really well at this point in time. Austin Huff, Jack Gentry. I'll do it again right, boys. I appreciate your patience.
Tighten up.
Thank you for having us, Buck. Yeah. Until next week. Tighten up.
Tighten up.